to Creepy True Stories, where reality takes a spine-tingling twist. Brace yourselves for a journey into the unknown, as we unearth chilling tales and unsolved mysteries that will keep you on the edge of your seat. Prepare to be captivated, intrigued, and haunted by the truth, because here, the darkness has a story to tell.
Story 1: The Whispering Shadows of Chateau de l'Eternite. High atop the rolling hills of France, the imposing Chateau de l'Eternite stood as a monument to forgotten horrors. This cursed fortress was home to the inscrutable Count de Montclair, whose malevolent power extended even beyond the grave. One fateful night, a group of intrepid explorers, led by the dauntless Sarah, ventured into the depths of the castle, determined to unravel its enigmatic past. With torches in hand, they descended into the catacombs, where the air grew colder and the shadows deeper. As they journeyed further into the bowels of the castle, the eerie silence was broken by the soft, haunting whispers that seemed to emanate from the very walls themselves. The voices murmured secrets and torments, echoing with a sinister familiarity. Sarah, sensing the increasing tension among her group, bravely approached a crypt adorned with intricate carvings. To her astonishment, she found her own name etched into the cold, ancient stone. Her heart quickened as the walls around her seemed to close in, and she realized her inexplicable connection to the Count's dark legacy. She stepped back, trembling, as the crypt's lid creaked open with a mournful groan. An ethereal, skeletal hand emerged, grasping for her. The others could only watch in horror as Sarah was pulled into the tomb, disappearing into the yawning abyss. The crypt sealed itself shut, leaving only the sound of her blood-curdling scream echoing through the catacombs. The group, now stricken with terror, retreated from the crypt in stunned disbelief. It became chillingly apparent that the Count's curse was not limited to the past, it still reached out from beyond the grave to claim the unwary. As they fled the accursed castle, the whispering shadows followed, leaving them with the unshakable knowledge that Chateau de l'Eternite was a place where the past and present intertwined in malevolent torment. Sarah's fate would forever serve as a haunting reminder of the inescapable horrors that awaited those who dared to explore the castle's depths. The remaining members of the exploration team, their faces etched with a mixture of shock and dread, fled the crypt in frantic haste. They ascended the narrow stone staircases and winding corridors, pursued by the ever-present whispers that seemed to echo their every step. As they reached the castle's entrance, they were met with an unsettling sight. The grand wooden doors had swung shut, their heavy oak panels sealing them within the fortress. Panic surged through their veins as they struggled to push the doors open. It was as though the very walls conspired against them. Desperation fueled their efforts. With a collective heave, they managed to break free of the castle's grasp, tumbling into the moonlit courtyard. But as they stumbled away from the accursed fortress, they knew that their encounter with Chateau de l'Eternite had left an indelible mark. The sinister twist in this tale, one that would haunt them forever, was the realization that the cursed whispers they had heard, the ominous shadows that enveloped them, and the cryptic etching of Sarah's name were not confined to the castle alone. In the days that followed, each member of the exploration team, one by one, began to hear the same sinister whispers that had drawn Sarah into the crypt. They found themselves inexorably drawn back to Chateau de l'Eternite. Soon, the echoes of their own tormented voices would join the chilling chorus of the castle's damned souls, ensuring that they, too, became an eternal part of its dark and tragic history. The whispers, shadows, and torment would never cease, as the cursed legacy of Count de Montclair claimed their souls one by one. The Chateau de l'Eternite stood as a grim testament to the past's unrelenting grip on the present, a place where souls were forever entwined in a macabre dance of suffering and despair. The chilling events that transpired within its walls would continue to be whispered among those who dared to explore Europe's most haunted fortresses, a warning that some horrors could never truly be escaped. The chilling events that unfolded in Chateau de l'Eternite had left the survivors scarred, both mentally and emotionally. Each night, they were plagued by nightmares of the crypt, the spectral hand reaching for them, and Sarah's anguished cries. The whispers persisted, growing louder and more insistent with each passing day. It was as though Count de Montclair's malevolence refused to release its grip on their lives. Driven to madness, they decided to return to the castle, seeking answers and hoping to free themselves from the torment. As they ventured back into the catacombs, the whispers led them deeper and deeper until they stood before the crypt that had claimed Sarah. With trembling hands, they began to recite incantations in an attempt to exorcise the malevolent spirit that held them captive. The very air seemed to thicken as they chanted, and the walls began to pulse with an eerie, ethereal light. Then, a deafening silence fell upon the crypt, and the ancient stone lid trembled. Slowly, it began to lift, revealing not the grotesque skeletal hand, but Sarah herself. Her eyes were empty voids, and her skin bore the pallor of death. In a voice that no longer seemed her own, she uttered the words, "We are one now, forever bound to this castle." The crypt closed once more, sealing them all inside. The survivors had succeeded in releasing Sarah from her torment, but in doing so, they had unwittingly become prisoners themselves. Chateau de l'Eternite had claimed them, their souls now forever intertwined with the malevolent Count de Montclair. As the crypt sealed shut, Sarah's lifeless eyes watched over them, and her cold, haunting whisper joined the others in the catacombs, ensuring that their torment would continue for all eternity. The echoes of their terror could be heard on the wind as a chilling reminder to those who dared to explore Europe's most haunted fortresses. Some places held ancient curses so powerful that they would never release their grip on those who ventured within. The whispering shadows of Chateau de l'Eternite would forever serve as a chilling testament to the castle's enduring and malevolent legacy. Within the confines of the crypt, a bone-chilling silence descended once more, sealing the group's fate alongside Sarah's. Their hearts heavy with dread, they realized the true extent of the curse that had ensnared them. They were now the whispered secrets, the tormented souls, and the forgotten echoes trapped within Chateau de l'Eternite. The very air in the crypt began to warp and change, taking on a malevolent presence. Shadows danced eerily on the walls, and the temperature plummeted further. It was as if the castle itself, the embodiment of Count de Montclair's dark power, was toying with them. In the depths of their despair, the group huddled together, clinging to one another for comfort. As the hours turned into days, their sanity began to unravel. They could feel the memories and personalities of those who had previously fallen victim to the Count's curse seeping into their own minds, merging with their consciousness. Their eyes took on a distant, hollow gaze, and they spoke in hushed, ancient tongues. Their individual identities blurred and faded, replaced by a collective consciousness that spanned centuries. The crypt had become a timeless prison, and they were its eternal captives. In their shared torment, they became a part of the castle's dark history, repeating the cycle of despair and terror that had claimed countless souls before them. Count de Montclair's malevolent legacy had found new vessels, and their only respite was in the whispered secrets and torment that now defined their existence. As the crypt remained sealed, a cruel irony lingered in the air. The explorers had sought to uncover the castle's enigmatic past, but they had become a part of that very history, doomed to endure an eternity of anguish and whispered shadows. Chateau de l'Eternite stood as a grim reminder that some horrors transcended time, ensnaring all who dared to delve into its dark and cursed depths. Their stories would be forgotten, and their voices would become one with the countless others that haunted the castle's catacombs. The chilling legacy of Chateau de l'Eternite would endure, ensuring that future generations would shudder at the mere mention of the castle, never truly comprehending the horrors that lay within its ancient stone walls. Story 2: The Siren Song of Bran Castle. Nestled amidst the misty Carpathian mountains of Romania, Bran Castle was forever associated with the legendary Dracula. Its Gothic architecture and eerie aura cast an inescapable spell on all who approached. A group of thrill-seekers journeyed to Bran Castle, drawn by the legends of the undead. As they explored the dimly lit chambers and winding corridors, they began to hear an enchanting, ethereal song echoing through the stone walls. The group followed the haunting melody to a hidden chamber where a beautiful woman stood, her eyes radiating a hypnotic allure. She sang a siren song that beckoned the group closer. The explorers were entranced, unaware that they were now trapped in the eternal service of the enigmatic lady of the castle, who was no ordinary vampire but a being more sinister than they could have ever imagined. The group of thrill-seekers who had ventured into Bran Castle had fallen under the enchanting spell of the lady of the castle, a beguiling figure with eyes that radiated a hypnotic allure. She sang a siren song that beckoned the group closer, weaving a seductive melody that filled the chamber with an otherworldly enchantment. As the explorers drew nearer to the enigmatic lady, they found themselves utterly captivated by her beauty and entrancing voice. The allure of her song was irresistible, and they felt an overwhelming desire to approach, their hearts pounding in rhythm with the haunting melody. Drawn closer to her by an unseen force, they succumbed to the lady's ethereal presence. Their minds swirled with a blend of ecstasy and fear, as they realized the true nature of the Lady of Bran Castle. She was no ordinary vampire, but a being of unspeakable malevolence, more sinister than they could have ever imagined. As the explorers approached, the lady's true form became horrifyingly apparent. Her once beautiful features distorted into a monstrous visage, her eyes glowing with an insatiable hunger for their souls. With an unholy shriek, she lunged forward, her fangs bared, and the chamber descended into chaos. One by one, the explorers fell victim to the lady's insatiable thirst for blood, their horrified screams echoing through the darkened corridors of Bran Castle. She drained them of life, their once vibrant spirits extinguished as they became eternal thralls in her unending quest for blood. With each life she claimed, the lady's beauty was momentarily restored, but it was a beauty marred by malevolence and unquenchable hunger. Bran Castle, which had long been associated with the legend of Dracula, revealed its darkest secret. The lady was the true embodiment of vampiric terror, and her siren song was a seductive trap for the unwary. As the night waned and the lady's unholy feast concluded, the survivors watched in a state of paralyzing dread. They had entered Bran Castle seeking the legends of the undead, but what they had found was a horrifying reality far more sinister than any folklore. The Lady of Bran Castle, with her insatiable thirst and seductive song, continued to haunt the fortress. Those who dared to venture into her lair were forever ensnared by her malevolent beauty, joining the countless souls who had fallen victim to her dark, siren spell. Bran Castle, forever shrouded in the echoes of terror and the haunting notes of the lady's song, remained a place of eternal torment, where the living and the undead converged in a macabre dance of death and despair. As the nightmarish ordeal inside Bran Castle unfolded, the survivors, wide-eyed with terror, found themselves grappling with a grim and inescapable reality. The seductive lady, once beautiful and alluring, had revealed herself as a monstrous predator, a vampire of the most malevolent kind. The chamber was now stained with the echoes of their friends' final, desperate cries. The lady's haunting song, which had lured them to their doom, had become an anthem of torment, ringing in their ears as they stood paralyzed by fear. As the last of the explorers fell to the lady's insatiable hunger, her monstrous visage continued to shift between beauty and horror. Her fangs remained wet with the lifeblood of her victims, and her eyes smoldered with an unholy fervor. The lady, having sated her bloodlust, turned her predatory gaze toward the survivors, who were now trembling in the presence of an unspeakable evil. With a languid grace, she moved closer, her inhumanly pale skin seemingly glowing in the dim light. They knew that they, too, were destined to be trapped in a never-ending nightmare, serving as her thralls in her relentless pursuit of blood. Their own lives and humanity were slipping away, drawn into the abyss of the vampire's cursed existence. In their helpless despair, the survivors realized that there was no escape from the Lady of Bran Castle. They were now prisoners in her malevolent web, forever entangled in the monstrous legend that had defined the castle for centuries. As the night wore on, the survivors descended deeper into darkness, their hope extinguished like candles in a gale. Bran Castle had once been a symbol of Dracula's legend, but now it bore a more harrowing truth. The lady, with her seductive song and insatiable hunger, was the true embodiment of vampiric terror. And so, Bran Castle remained a place where the echoes of anguish and the siren song of the lady continued to reverberate through its cursed halls. Those who ventured within would forever join the ranks of the tormented, their humanity and lives sacrificed to the unholy thirst of the castle's insatiable mistress. The survivors, now eternally bound to Bran Castle, stood as living testaments to the horrifying secrets that lay hidden within its ancient stone walls. Their existence became a chilling reminder of the inescapable horrors that awaited those who dared to seek the truth behind Europe's most haunted fortresses. As the survivors of Bran Castle's nightmarish ordeal stood paralyzed by fear in the aftermath of the lady's horrific feeding frenzy, a profound sense of hopelessness settled over them. They had entered the castle with the intention of unraveling its dark legends, but instead, they had discovered a horrifying reality far beyond any folklore. The chamber, now tainted with the haunting echoes of their friends' final cries, seemed to close in around them. The lady, her beauty forever marred by her monstrous nature, eyed them with a predatory hunger that chilled their souls. Her ethereal allure had lured them to their doom, and now they were her prisoners. The lady's fangs remained stained with the lifeblood of her victims, glistening in the dim light. Her eyes bore the insatiable fervor of a creature that had lived for centuries, thriving on the essence of those who had unwittingly ventured into her lair. With deliberate grace, she moved closer, her predatory intent unmistakable. The survivors felt the weight of their own mortality pressing down upon them, knowing that they were destined to serve as her thralls in her relentless quest for blood. Their own lives, once vibrant and full of promise, were now fading away, their humanity slipping into the abyss of the vampire's cursed existence. The survivors had become prisoners in a never-ending nightmare, ensnared by the Lady of Bran Castle's malevolent web. As the darkness deepened and the night wore on, their hope dwindled until it was extinguished entirely, like candles in a relentless gale. Bran Castle, long associated with Dracula's legend, had revealed a darker truth. The lady, with her seductive song and insatiable hunger, was the true embodiment of vampiric terror. And so, Bran Castle stood as a place where the echoes of anguish and the siren song of the lady continued to resonate through its cursed corridors. Those who dared to enter its shadowed halls would inevitably become part of the castle's macabre tapestry, forever bound to its torment. Their existence was a chilling reminder that some horrors could never be escaped, and the legends surrounding Europe's most haunted fortresses held darker secrets than anyone could fathom. The survivors, now eternally entwined with Bran Castle, were living witnesses to the nightmarish truths concealed behind its ancient stone walls. The horror of their existence served as a haunting testament to the inescapable terrors that awaited those who dared to peel back the layers of history and confront the sinister forces lurking within Europe's most feared fortresses. Story 3: The Cursed Portrait of Schloss Eiskalt. Schloss Eiskalt, a forgotten fortress in the heart of Germany, bore witness to centuries of sorrow and suffering. The castle's true terror lay hidden behind the imposing walls in the form of a cursed portrait. A group of art aficionados decided to explore Schloss Eiskalt, hoping to unearth a rumored masterpiece that had been concealed for centuries. As they ventured deeper into the darkened hallways, they stumbled upon a hidden chamber adorned with an ornate frame. Within that frame, a bewitching portrait of a hauntingly beautiful woman captured their attention. She appeared to age before their eyes, her face warping into grotesque contortions. The group realized that the cursed painting had trapped the souls of all who had dared to gaze upon it. With each passing moment, they felt their own souls being drawn into the painting, forever imprisoned alongside the tormented souls of centuries past. The hidden chamber within Schloss Eiskalt was a realm of perpetual darkness, where the cursed portrait of a hauntingly beautiful woman cast an eerie, ethereal light. As the explorers stared at the painting, they were drawn into the mystique of the artwork, their senses overwhelmed by its otherworldly presence. The portrait itself seemed to breathe, its surface undulating as if it was a living entity. The beauty of the woman's face gave way to grotesque contortions, her features twisting and writhing in an agonizing dance. The explorers, captivated by the surreal transformation, were unable to tear their eyes away from the horrific spectacle. Their voices were silenced by the creeping dread that filled the room. Their very souls seemed to shiver as the woman in the painting continued to shift between beauty and abomination. Her eyes, once full of life, had become hollow voids, and her once smooth complexion was marred by horrific scars and gashes. Unable to resist the allure of the cursed portrait, the explorers reached out, their fingers trembling as they made contact with the canvas. It was as if the painting itself hungered for their touch, absorbing their life force with each passing moment. As their hands remained pressed against the haunted canvas, the explorers felt their own humanity slipping away. The line between reality and the painting blurred until they themselves became part of the artwork, trapped within the cursed frame. Their screams, now silent and ethereal, joined the chorus of tormented souls that inhabited the portrait. The cursed woman's macabre dance of beauty and horror continued, and her canvas became a prison for those who had dared to approach her. Schloss Eiskalt, a fortress that had hidden its dark secret for centuries, had claimed new victims in its insatiable quest for souls. The explorers, once driven by curiosity, had now become a part of the castle's dark legacy, trapped for all eternity within the haunting portrait. The cursed painting, once forgotten by time, now held the spirits of the explorers, and its malevolent aura would continue to ensnare those who ventured into Schloss Eiskalt. The castle, long shrouded in mystery, remained a place where the boundaries between reality and the supernatural were forever blurred, and the tormented souls trapped within the cursed portrait whispered their tales of woe to any who dared to listen. The story of Schloss Eiskalt served as a grim reminder that some secrets were best left undisturbed, for within the darkest depths of Europe's most haunted fortresses, ancient curses could claim even the most intrepid of souls, reducing them to spectral remnants of their former selves. Within the hidden chamber of Schloss Eiskalt, the explorers stood transfixed by the cursed portrait's grotesque dance of beauty and horror. The once beautiful woman in the painting, whose eyes had transformed into hollow voids, was now a nightmarish reflection of their own horror-stricken faces. As they reached out to touch the cursed canvas, their trembling hands sealed their fate. The moment their fingertips made contact with the painting, they were enveloped by an overwhelming sensation of dread and despair. It was as if the cursed portrait hungered for their life force, draining their very essence with every passing second. They were powerless to pull away, their wills utterly consumed by the malevolent presence that radiated from the artwork. Their humanity slipped away like a shadow, and the line between the physical world and the cursed frame blurred until they were indistinguishable from the woman trapped in the portrait. Their voices, once filled with terror, were silenced, replaced by an eerie, haunting silence. In this nightmarish transformation, they joined the countless others who had succumbed to the cursed painting, trapped forever in a liminal space between the living and the spectral. They became eternally entwined with the cursed woman, their souls now imprisoned within the very artwork that had once captivated them. The chamber itself seemed to breathe, as if it absorbed the essence of the explorers, leaving nothing but an empty husk behind. The cursed portrait continued its grotesque dance, its malevolent aura growing stronger with each soul it claimed. Schloss Eiskalt, a fortress that had concealed its dark secret for centuries, had fed once again, adding to the torment that lay within its ancient stone walls. The explorers, who had ventured in search of forgotten beauty, had become the latest chapter in the castle's dark and cursed legacy, their existence forever bound to the haunted portrait. As the cursed painting became a repository for their tormented souls, Schloss Eiskalt whispered its unholy secrets to those who would listen. It served as a grim reminder that the boundaries between the living and the supernatural were porous in the darkest corners of Europe's most haunted fortresses, and the curses of the past could claim the souls of the unwary, forever reducing them to spectral fragments of their former selves. The story of Schloss Eiskalt became a haunting legend, a cautionary tale for all who dared to explore the hidden depths of the world's most enigmatic castles, where the allure of the unknown often led to a fate far more terrifying than they could ever have imagined. Story 4: The Malevolent Labyrinth of Castillo de las Almas Perdidas. Deep within the heart of Spain, Castillo de las Almas Perdidas, the Castle of Lost Souls, had earned its foreboding name. It was a place of unspeakable horrors, a labyrinth of despair. A group of paranormal investigators embarked on a harrowing journey into the depths of the castle. As they navigated the castle's intricate passages, they heard the eerie whispers of lost souls and the faint cries of anguish. In the heart of the labyrinth, they discovered a room filled with mirrors that reflected the darkest corners of their souls. As they gazed into these cursed mirrors, their own malevolence consumed them, revealing the true nature of their being. The explorers turned on each other, becoming soulless, vengeful entities doomed to haunt Castillo de las Almas Perdidas for all eternity. These tales recount the chilling experiences of brave souls who ventured into Europe's most haunted castles, where malevolent forces and ancient curses await those who dare to explore their shadowy depths. With each unsettling plot twist, these stories aim to keep listeners on the edge of their seats, their skin crawling, and their imagination running wild. Within the heart of Castillo de las Almas Perdidas, the intrepid paranormal investigators stood at the precipice of their own despair. The castle's labyrinthine passages stretched out before them, an intricate web of shadow and malevolence. As they navigated the seemingly endless corridors, the whispering voices of the lost souls grew louder, a haunting chorus that echoed through the stone walls. The cries of anguish resonated in their very bones, a relentless reminder that they were not alone in the accursed fortress. It was as though the castle itself was alive, a sentient entity that reveled in their torment. The walls seemed to shift and close in around them, creating an ever-changing, suffocating maze from which there was no escape. Their torchlight cast eerie, flickering shadows, amplifying the sense of dread that clung to them like a shroud. The explorers' bond had begun to unravel, and their trust in one another waned with each passing moment. The malevolent presence that permeated Castillo de las Almas Perdidas worked to sow discord among them, making them turn on each other as their fear escalated. In a moment of desperation, they reached a chamber that held an array of mirrors, each reflecting the darkest aspects of their souls. The images in the mirrors twisted and contorted, revealing their innermost fears, resentments, and vengeful desires. It was as though the castle itself was forcing them to confront the darkest corners of their minds. As the explorers gazed into the cursed mirrors, the malevolence within them was drawn out, leaving them as soulless, vengeful entities. Their humanity slipped away, replaced by a cold, predatory hunger for one another's suffering. The once unbreakable bond of their team now dissolved into a maelstrom of betrayal and violence. The explorers turned on one another, their eyes vacant and filled with malice, their faces twisted by a newfound malevolence. The labyrinth of Castillo de las Almas Perdidas had claimed their souls, and their humanity was lost to the unrelenting darkness. As the echoes of their own torment reverberated through the castle's labyrinth, they became the castle's newest tormentors, their vengeful spirits trapped within its cursed walls. Castillo de las Almas Perdidas had succeeded in ensnaring their souls, adding to the chorus of anguish that permeated its depths. The castle stood as a grim reminder that some places were not meant to be explored, where the malevolence of the past could ensnare the unwary, driving them to confront the darkest aspects of their own souls. Castillo de las Almas Perdidas, with its ever-present labyrinth and the unrelenting torment that dwelled within, remained a place where the living and the damned converged in a never-ending symphony of suffering and despair. As the explorers stood within the heart of Castillo de las Almas Perdidas, their hope and unity had given way to despair and betrayal. The labyrinthine passages had become an intricate web of terror, their very souls ensnared within the castle's malevolent grasp. The persistent whispers of lost souls continued to haunt them, each cry of anguish etching deeper into their consciousness. It was as though the castle itself reveled in their torment, its sentient presence weaving a symphony of dread that echoed through the very stones. The maze-like corridors seemed to shift and tighten, confining them further with each passing step. The flickering torchlight cast eerie, ever-shifting shadows on the walls, amplifying the feeling of suffocating darkness that enveloped them. In the face of the castle's relentless malevolence, trust among the explorers began to erode. Their once unbreakable bond disintegrated as fear and paranoia gnawed at their minds. The malevolent presence that saturated Castillo de las Almas Perdidas seemed determined to turn them against each other, pitting them in a cruel battle for survival. Their descent into despair reached a breaking point when they entered a chamber adorned with an array of mirrors, each reflecting their innermost fears, resentments, and vengeful desires. The images in the mirrors contorted and twisted, as though the very castle was forcing them to confront the darkest recesses of their souls. In their desperation, they stared into the cursed mirrors, their very humanity slipping away as the malevolence within them was drawn out. Their eyes grew vacant, and their faces contorted into masks of predatory hunger for each other's suffering. The explorers, once bound by a shared purpose, had become soulless, vengeful entities, locked in a macabre dance of violence and betrayal. The labyrinth of Castillo de las Almas Perdidas had claimed not only their humanity but their unity as well. The castle had torn them asunder, transforming them into vengeful spirits filled with a malevolence that mirrored the very essence of the fortress. As their own torment echoed through the castle's labyrinth, they joined the countless others who had fallen victim to the castle's malevolence. Castillo de las Almas Perdidas had succeeded in ensnaring their souls, adding to the haunting chorus of anguish that lingered within its depths. The castle stood as a chilling testament to the perilous nature of exploration, a place where the malevolence of the past could ensnare the unwary, forcing them to confront the darkest aspects of their own souls. Castillo de las Almas Perdidas, with its unforgiving labyrinth and the relentless torment that dwelled within, remained a place where the living and the damned merged in an eternal symphony of suffering and despair, a stark reminder that some secrets were never meant to be uncovered.